here, that's a little bit off. So I understand that no longer will Office of Child Care be licensing programs attached to schools, right? That's been a decision.
Well, not attached to schools, it's, schools that, are, it's
Administered by schools? or-
Administered, but yeah.
Yeah,
ran by schools.
it's, so the school is the fiscal agent, yeah.
So is there work by ODE to adopt rules in alignment and a process for those programs?
So that when I was mentioning the alternative pathway working group over the summer, it's been a process sort of ELD driven with support of ODE and COLE to bring K-12 stakeholders together as well as other early care and education partners to look at this alternative pathway, which is exactly what you're saying.
Okay,
Looking
yeah.
at where is there already regulations that really align and therefore we're duplicative of, you know, something like fire inspection. Schools are already doing that, right? That's a process our licensors can sort of look at and verify or not, you know, necessarily have to inspect. Background checks has been another one that's come up, right? Schools do background checks, we do background checks, very different, it feels redundant, it can be a cost issue, so how do we really align those? As well as then having a process by which if a school is the fiscal agent of public funds, so say an Oregon pre-K grant, and you know, or preschool promise, that they will be able to, or they're choosing to participate in Spark, there are standards that they'll meet that are associated that wouldn't be already in their regulatory framework that are important for the care and education of young children. Does that help? So it's basically a kind of a looking at a lot of those standards that particularly that are associated with licensing around health and safety that aren't duplicative but matter, and having a different pathway for schools to demonstrate meeting those that isn't actually associated with getting a license. So that's the state barrier that we have, is we actually can't give a license to.
Yeah, I just want to make sure those kids aren't outliers, but we're not making, they deserve the same safety
Right.
and that other children in other settings
Yeah.
deserve.
Yeah.
So clarification, so we're still gonna license them, but there will be certain pieces that.
We can't actually license them, but we can still, if they're the recipient of state funds, so for early care and education, or if they're participating in Spark, sort of voluntarily, will meet the same, there will be standards for them to meet.
So who regulates those kids that aren't, you know, licensed?
It'll be in the school district.
Right, it's the school. I mean, we don't have right now, if they're not receiving public funding, they're not in Spark. And so, say if there's a Title I funded pre-K program or a locally funded, district funded program, we wouldn't.
So that's pre-K, not childcare.
Right.
We'll still regulate childcare.
It will, where it gets complicated is that we legally cannot license if a school has a childcare facility. If they contract it out, say to Campfire or some other entity, then we can license them because they're the licensee. If the school is the licensee, we cannot do a license. And so there's some reason that they want to have the alternative pathways because of access to public funds, then we will have this alternative pathway that will have key components of the health and safety standards of licensing, with looking at where some of the duplicative and kind of the uniqueness of a school setting is in play.
So do we have a gap right now?
Yeah.
But that's not one that we can fix in the immediate. It requires a statutory
Okay,
change.
I just want to know, we have a gap.
Yeah.
So Terry, you're right, we have some outliers.
Right, but they're
Right.
working.
Right. We're working on the more immediate solution, and then we have to look to session in the longer term. And I will say this isn't like this interpretation of the state statute about can we license facility probably isn't the only gap, right? As we look at health and safety and best practice standards associated with care in education settings or other, so it's a bigger area that that needs to be explored.
I have a clarifying question, although I really would like us to vote on the rules before we have
So
this
sorry.
conversation. And it's not really related to the rules that we're adopting. I do-
question?
My question, yeah, is the interpretation now that, for instance, the university operates a childcare center, we used to license them, we quit?
No, that is where there's still some interpretation and that
Okay.
is work to do moving forward.
Okay,
So
I mean, I think that's this is all an important conversation. I don't see it as part of the rules.
All right, so let's, if there are no other questions focused on the rules, let's vote then. Those in favor of adoption of these rules, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? If not, they are adopted and go into effect September 30th.
great, thank you.
Did we